Hello, this is Dungeon Master Bloba coming at you with another video. This time we're going to be talking about part 3 of how to make a great antagonist and/or villain, whether it's for Dungeons and Dragons, World of Darkness, Within the Ring of Fire, or whatever other games out there you may be playing. This part we're going to talk about mechanics. Now this is where it's going to differ a lot from the last two videos because they're very general, and I can't exactly tell you use a wizard template from Dungeons and Dragons if you're playing World of Darkness or something like that. So I'm going to try to keep it very broad with the mechanics instead of talking about give him 20 Constitution or 3 Dexterity in World of Darkness. Um, we're going to be talking more about how to make the fights just interesting in general. And without further ado, we shall get started on that. First things first, when you're talking about the final battle, now, do you want it to be a battle of wits, or do you want it to be a battle of, like, bronze? Do you want it to be a puzzle, or do you want it to be something like a political battle, like an election? After you decide that, then you decide how the final battle is going to play out. Um, give the antagonist some special powers. Maybe they're powers that are already in the game, that aren't easily available. Maybe they're powers that you make up. They don't necessarily have to be supernatural in origin. They don't have to be able to cast a particular spell or transform into a particular creature that doesn't even exist in the world that you had to make up for them. But if you're running a political campaign, perhaps they rig the votes, or and then your players have to find some way to prove that they have been rigging the votes. Or if you're playing a traditional Dungeons and Dragons style campaign and you have an antagonist as a necromancer, perhaps give him the ability to create a death knight, um, which usually in 3rd edition anyways isn't a normal ability that a everyday cleric can have. Um, when you're looking to the battle unto itself, make sure there's a big build up. Don't just go, alright, there you go. The boss flies down on a griffin or something and you fight in the middle of the street. Make it so that your players, I mean, it could be really good to have a surprise attack, but make them know that this build up the tension to it. Like, if somebody, maybe slowly, if they're investigating murders, maybe the murders start getting closer and closer to home. Maybe they start killing off other police detectives, and perhaps even strike at, possibly succeed or fail at one of the player's family members. You know, build that up, and then eventually maybe the murderer strikes at the players themselves, or they find some condemning evidence and they have to ensue in a chase or a battle to arrest them, or give a wizard a tweaked spell in Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe instead of shooting one big fireball, he shoots multiple smaller fireballs that do a little bit less damage but can hit multiple targets farther apart than a normal fireball could, to kind of throw a wrench into your party members' plans. Because if they're expecting a big fireball, they'll all be spread out, but they would have no idea to expect a bunch of tiny ones to come spraying at them and hitting them even though they're apart. Just make it very surprising, full of twists and turns, just about as much as your story is. And also try to have the plot tie into the final battle. Don't make a fighter antagonist and then have him summoning lightning from the heavens without a good reason for it. If you want to do that, give the fighter a magical artifact or something, or perhaps a wizard ally, but try to tie into it. Maybe this guy as in, maybe you're playing World of Darkness and someone's been burning people alive. Perhaps he could be a wizard who, I mean a mage in World of Darkness who focuses on fire, and then give him, of course, fire abilities. Um, like, if you want to have an expert swordsman, perhaps give him a few custom feats or techniques that he could use in battle that only he has. And maybe it's really cool to give them specially enchanted weapons or armor. Don't like deck them out completely unless you're playing a higher level thing, because that could really um, really pound your characters into the ground. If you give a Dungeons and Dragons character who's like a 5th level fighter and your players are like all 3rd level, and then they go fight him and he's like got +5 swords, +5 armor and stuff, then they'll have little to no chance against him. And if they do somehow miraculously beat him, then they'll be way overgeared. Sorry about that. Freaking somebody's trying to call me. Um, then that's also something else to talk about with the mechanical parts. Hold on. When we talk about mechanics, don't forget that making them the same level as your players usually isn't a good idea. I mean, you can do it, but I found that they usually smack the villain down like a normal minion. I always like to play some 3, 4, sometimes if I'm playing with really experienced players and want to have a really tough fight, I'll even play some 5 levels above the players. But I suggest, like, if your players are new to the game, maybe 2 levels and higher would be ample challenge for them without completely and utterly overwhelming them. And if your players are extremely experienced players who know what they're doing with the game and everything, and possibly even if they like the more hack and slash feel and you have a more of a power gamey feel to your game, then I would say up to 5 levels could go pretty far. That I've done that with a couple of bosses before, and the fights, they were they were something. The players definitely came out of them beaten and bruised, but they did win. Anything above 5 levels above your player, I think is a little bit much. And also, one thing that you can do, if you want to put them really high, like 5 levels or higher, you can give your players a special artifact or weapon that can be used to defeat them. Like in a recent game I ran, there was a particular sword that instantly destroyed the villain if he was hit with it, but it was extremely hard to hit the guy, and the weakest player in the party was the only one who could wield the sword, and they had to battle him one-on-one, and it ended up for a pretty good fight. Um, Also, if you have NPC allies with your players, you can make up some NPC minions to distract the allies while they battle the final boss. Back on a political scene, also you can do a slander campaign. Um, like perhaps the political enemy slandering your players, and perhaps they find some real dirt or some extremely good manufactured blackmail that's not even legitimate, and then your players have to prove their innocence. And they could counterattack, and then perhaps he could prove that what they have is fake, or even if it's real, still make people believe it's fake, and then use that as slander against them because they tried to slander him and stuff, and you can just have a really like embroiled political feud, and having people bribes placed. Perhaps one of them gets arrested with some type of illegal narcotics planted on them or something, and then that can really do horrendous things to a person's political career. But yeah, overall, that's about as far as I can go into the mechanics without getting into a specific game. But the quick overview of what I mean by that is go on a checklist. 1, make sure their powers tie in with your plot. 2, make sure they have cool, unique powers about them. 3, make sure they're a decent level above your party. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below. If you want to know about a specific game, I'll try to help you the best I can. Possibly, if I get enough requests, maybe I'll make an entire video to a specific game system. But, as always, if you liked the video, like, favorite, subscribe. Didn't like it, feel free to leave a dislike. Just comment why you didn't like it below. This is Dungeon Master Bloba, signing off.